I've won more deals from just the conversations I had when they were just finally able to speak to me, and I was able to speak in a sophisticated way about something or anything more to do with like myself, not selfishly, but of learning and getting better and things of that nature. They appreciated that. So the biggest thing that I would tell anybody starting, because that's who I work with the most, and that's where I was, right? I started. But this is where I told you I was doing things right and I didn't know it. We started this off with teaching and education. I was very educated. And believe me, I guarantee you I'm the dumbest person on this call.
All right, guys, we have another amazing episode about to drop right now because we have the one and only Michael Hern in the house. Michael, thank you for being here with us today.
Appreciate you guys. Really, really excited to be here with you, Dean and Rich. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to talking through all this.
Absolutely, dude. And so tell the crowd a little bit about, if they don't know who you are, a little bit about yourself, where you do business and, how you got started in the business.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I sell most of my real estate in Hudson County, a little bit into Bergen County, primarily along the waterfront, which we designate as the Gold Coast. That gets into Hoboken, Jersey City, as well as Edgewater. I've been selling real estate for about 15 years now. We have a team of about 20 people. We do roughly 200 million in volume. I am just somebody that would take listings. I'm not really working with buyers or anything of that nature. And at this point in my career, I'm just focused on making sure that my agents are getting the most out of themselves, and positioned with the right tools and mindset and everything necessary to be a good real estate agent, but more importantly, a great person, and know how to make smart decisions with the money that they make and the conversations that they have. So it's been fun. It's been a good journey. I got into real estate because I went to school to be a teacher, and that just didn't work out at that time when I came out of college. They weren't hiring for physical education and health. And then I took a fireman test because my dad was a fireman. And for the first time in 16 years, they weren't hiring. So it was a weird time. I got into real estate by chance, by luck. And it was just everything that I enjoyed doing, in terms of speaking with people, having conversations, and really teaching and educating like I went to school for. And that's what really got me into the team model, because I love teaching, I love coaching, and the rest really was about the market. The market was a good environment at that time when I got in 2010, and we worked our butts off, and we were able to reap all the benefits of the hard work and proper strategy and tactics, and it left us to where we are today, which is exciting and a good position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, I think that your teaching background is something I would like to go into a little bit more, because I've noticed a trend, Rich. I'm not sure if you have, with some of we've had other guests that have also been teachers, funny enough, who seem to be very successful at this job. What have you taken from, like, I know you didn't become a teacher necessarily, but whatever attracted you to that world, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, what do you feel like has allowed you to be so successful in real estate that you've attributed to at least having the mindset around education and teaching?
I think everything starts with education in any success field, in real estate, health, wealth, wellness, financial advising, stock market. If you're not educated, it's tough to be successful, right? It's tough to run the playbook of whatever it is you're looking to do. So even before I started educating people, I was educating myself. And while I got better as a person and became more opportunities were created for me from doing that. And then just the transition of why I like to teach or why I like to coach, it started with the client, right? In the beginning of teaching them and coaching them about the process, what they're about to experience. And I always talk about the expectation and reality gap, which is, everybody has a level of expectation, whether it's for ourselves, and then there's a reality of where we tend to be. And I always try to make sure that reality and expectation gap is closed, so we're doing what's needed to hit that expectation. And that's what I would always start with teaching the client, right? When I was working with buyers or sellers, is what is your expectations? And then that was the biggest teaching lesson, was their expectations real? Did I need to teach on that? Um, and was my reality something that I could deliver to match their expectation based on who I am and what I'm doing and how I would work for them. But then once we figured that out, it just got into the process, right? Understanding the buyer side process, the seller side process. And I loved going through that and just dealing with people who were good at what they did. But real estate's, there's a lot of minutia going in and that really gets overlooked by most people that think our job is easy. And it's not. So just educating on them on what we were doing and how we were doing things really transitioned into success because I think that they had better clarity on what was going on. So that was the main reason why I think the teaching and education part, because it was important, and I put that into my business because I was passionate about it, and I felt like in order to do well, you needed to be educated, whether you were the agent or the buyer or seller, like you needed to be educated, and it helped a lot. And now I just do that with my, excuse me, now I just do that at a high level with my realtors and with my agents, and I know you guys do that really well in terms of prospecting in the Phone Warriors group, which is phenomenal, by the way. And I probably need an education in that because I lack a lot in that regard.
So would you say that, I know you didn't physically become a teacher, but I'm assuming during schooling and what you learned, because they say most teachers are great with scheduling and scheduling conflicts. So how do you take that, we'll say that from the college side and be able to put it into your normal life along with teaching your agents? Like how did you learn that then, I would say?
Came
And is
from
that
from lesson planning, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you had to create lesson plans as a teacher. And if you were teaching, whether it was in a physical education classroom, you were teaching baseball, right? You had to create a lesson plan of first they got to learn the bases, right? First base, second base, third base. They got to know how many players are on the field. And when are we covering this? And when are we covering that? A goes before B, B comes before C. So having those lesson plans just as a teacher transitioned into me developing a business plan that correlated to how teaching was taught. And outside of just teaching and coaching and scheduling, a lot came from my athletic background of just knowing things need to be worked on, right? If I was a basketball player, so one day it was, layups. The second day it was three pointers. The next day it was foul shots. The next day it was dribbling. And you get to understand that all of these things need to be part of you, because if you're only a good shooter, well, then you can't bring the ball up the court, and there's only a limited opportunity for you, right? But if you could dribble the ball, you could play defense, you could shoot the ball, and you could put it all together, there's a lot more opportunity for you on the court. And I looked at that through lesson planning and athletics of trying to put it all together to really being an overall good agent, right? Like I said, the one biggest thing I lacked was prospecting, which I think if I did a good job in the beginning with, my success level would be much higher. But because I didn't have that, I know for certain there was a lot of opportunities that I missed because I didn't get that opportunity because I wasn't good in that arena.
Interesting. So did you feel so like that was kind of like it leads me into my question as you're talking. I'm thinking about because as you know, we're Phone Words is a big prospecting group, obviously. There's two different ways to earn business in this business. It's marketing and prospecting, or both, but most successful agents really pick a lane and they go for it. So why marketing? Because I know you market the shit out of our market here. And yet prospect, I enjoy doing that, but that's your thing. What did you see, and what are some of the things that you implemented in your business to scale that marketing effort to really go from where you were to where you are today?
Having success in the beginning created some income opportunity for me, right? And with the income, I always looked at the best investment I could always make is in myself. And I also didn't have a mentor or somebody good to look up to that was prospecting. I had somebody in my world that was more of a marketer. So I believe that's directly why I went to marketing versus prospecting. Because Dean, if I would have came in here and been under your helm, I know I would have been a good prospector, a great prospector in that regard. And I think I probably would have went more of that way because it's more profitable. I think there's a better ROI on it. And you just have to have the right mindset around it. And with the marketing, I got into marketing because I understood the psychology. I was always big in psychology of reading and learning about myself and about others, especially now being in the sales world. And there was one thing that I learned really, really early called the mirror effect. And what that is when a human being sees something so often, they automatically correlate that to success.
Mm.
So showing up in their mailbox all the time, being on the ferry terminal all the time, having the van with the logo parked in the parking lot all the time, hosting all the events all the time, there comes a consistency with that correlates to people when it's their time to sell. It's let me start with that guy that I always see. He must be successful, whether he is or not. Like that's that mirror effect. And the whole thing with marketing, like you heard me say, is consistency. And when I started with this, is I had some income from doing open houses, right? And I had a nice price point. I saved my money, and I wanted to make an investment back into myself. And I knew, having studied marketing pretty well, that if I wasn't able to do this consistently, it was a complete waste of money, like an absolute complete waste of money. It may take 6 months, 7 months, 8 months to get it going, especially as a new agent where nobody even knew me. And I knew money was going to have to be invested out in order to start coming back in. So I saved that money to be able to do so. I had that mindset to stay with it and stay consistent around it. Similar to the compound effect, right? Like you got to have that mindset to put the money in, let it compound and not take it back out. And that's what marketing was. And that's the philosophy I've always had. It's hard to track my ROI on it at this point in my career because so much has been done. And we don't send out a mailer that says like text 1234 for this, and then we know what we got off that mailer. We don't do that. I just played the game of consistency and mirror effect, making sure they saw me everywhere. They correlated success to it. We marketed a lot of stuff that showed them that we were getting listings, that we were selling homes, that we were more than just real estate agents. We were humans. We host events. We had charitable events. We do free coffee every Friday at the ferry terminal. So all of that stuff really creates a bigger picture in the consumer's mind. And, we tapped into that and we did a really good job. But I do think if I tailored that on with prospecting, because marketing takes no damn time, right? Like we could all have a marketing director or a virtual assistant to do that. And if I would have spent my time prospecting, I believe my business would be 50% better than what it is, if not double.
Wow. So what I hear you saying is you're basically brainwashing the people that are coming through the terminal through marketing, right? For lack of better words, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like when you think like electronics, you might think Best Buy, right? So you're hoping that when they think real estate, like, oh, he gave me the law of reciprocity, right? He gave me a free coffee.
Well, exactly what you're saying. If I asked you, Rich, right now, ready? What are the toothpaste brands? Name it.
I'll say Colgate because that's what I use and that's all I care about.
Colgate, right? Colgate. Like Dean, how many do you know of?
That's pretty much it. Or Crest. That's
Right,
it.
okay. Colgate, Crest,
It's
right?
too popular,
When
but
somebody thinks about selling their home,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Colgate or a Crest.
Yes.
That pops into their mind, and that's what the marketing has done. And I believe you could do that well with your SOI as well, in marketing to your SOI, because when it's time for them to sell, they're only going to remember one or two or three people. And if, Dean, you sell a home to somebody and don't stay in touch with that person, and they're constantly getting my mailers, constantly walking past my flyer, like they're going to think of me. They may think of you if they had a good experience, but if you fail to stay in touch with them, I've already taken up all of that market share in their brain.
So like that's such a good point because I look at this and I say to myself, well, you're right. You could have done prospecting, let's say, or maybe done a little bit better with that and then gotten scaled that much more. You could be 500 million of volume a year. Who knows? But the reality is that I think you're touching on something that I think a lot of people need to hear, which is that we just talked about it, brand. I think we undervalue what a brand does and how powerful a brand value is in a marketplace, because it provides one thing that I know Rich and I have done a really good job at when we prospect for at a high level is that I'm constantly seeing, and every single time I'm reaching out to that person, I mean, granted that we have a good mindset, we're disciplined, we know what to say and everything like that, but it's also the trust. You're building trust constantly with all the events and the platforms and everything else. So can you go into a little bit of that, and like why do you feel like either agents trust you to work with you, and also why the consumer really trusts you? Because you do have to speak when you get the person reaching out to you. There has to be a sense of skill there, but I feel like that trust, do you feel like trust outweighs the skill sometimes, or is it kind of like, in between there? What do you say about that?
Well, part of the mirror effect is not just did they correlate it with success, they correlate it with trust. It's a trusted brand because they see it everywhere, and that's just a psychological thing. But once that marketing works and they get to me, they get me on a phone call, or even my agent on a phone call, we go over brand because we know that they've seen that everywhere, right? Every single weekend, our open house signs are out. So we just reinforce what they've seen over their time of where they've been, of, hey, we host events, we're meeting a lot of buyers, right? Or we're in touch with all the rental buildings for your home if you're a seller. So, and they know that because they see the signs out, they see the marketing go out, but we reinforce that brand of who's doing that. And we ask the question, do you see anybody else doing it at that level? No, not at your, we know this guy, or we see a couple of this guy. Of course, you're always going to see somebody, but nobody's doing it at the level we are. And because of the level we're doing it at, you're going to have more opportunity, potential for more offers, potentially more income in net dollars. And I guarantee you a better level of service, because we have the systems and processes in place to be able to do this at a high level.
Yeah.
And the same thing, similar to the agent. When building the team, it's number one, they have to trust you. They came because they saw the brand. They like what you do. They like how you do things. But it comes down to trust. And I always call any of my agents their partners, because that's genuinely who they are to me and what I am to them, is a partner. And I asked them, do you trust me to do my job as a partner for you? Here's my duties of what I need to do. Here are yours. Can I trust you to do yours? And if I do mine and you do yours, we should be able to take you from A to B. Like this isn't rocket science. And if we can't do that, we shouldn't partner. Ultimately.
So what I hear you saying as well is, outside of this brand, between agents and between your clients, you're also good at your communication aspect, the way that you're asking questions. And it sounds like you're not just asking open-ended questions where they don't go anywhere, or yes or no questions where they don't go anywhere. It's kind of walking them down that line. So would you say that you practiced that as well? Or was that something that just natural to you?
Oh, no, definitely not natural. I think that to be natural in that world, I think is pretty damn hard. And I don't even know if it's possible, truthfully, because there's nobody I've seen do it at a high level that was just a natural. I think they've become natural at the way they deliver and the way they communicate because of all the practice that they put in. But it was definitely a lot of putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? And not only just telling them what they want to hear, but guiding them past what they're not thinking of, right? Because then you're bringing in that value. Because if you're bringing in thoughts into their head that they haven't thought about, now you're starting to bring value. And that's really what a client deserves, is to work with somebody who's going to bring value, and definitely a partnership, right? If we partnered, you have to bring value and I have to bring value. And I want to make sure you understand the value I bring. And I'd imagine definitely that's what you guys cover in terms of prospecting. There's got to be some type of script and questions that gets them to kind of ask about your value that you'll bring to the table, right? And that's really what I do on anything, whether it's speaking to an agent that really wants to join a team, or a client that wants to buy or sell a home, is what value can we bring to your life? How do we differentiate ourselves from others, right? Because I'll never say, listen, you're never going to hear me tell you that I always respond, that I check all my emails, our communication is great, because anybody can do that, right? But what they can't do, or what you won't hear them talk about is this, this, and this. And there's a reason that they don't talk about that, because they can't deliver it. And they don't want to set that expectation of themselves, because their reality is that they won't be able to deliver that. But we want to keep your expectation high and show you that our reality is right in line with your expectations. So this process, this partnership is what it's supposed to be, which is ultimately, we're at A, how do we get to B? And if I can't clearly define how we get to A to B, you shouldn't trust me on this partnership. Again, whether it's a seller, a buyer, or an agent, right? And here's my role in these, here's your role. If you do your job, I do my job, we're going to get to A and B. But if you don't do your job and I do mine, we're going to stay at A. And if you do yours and I don't do mine, we're going to stay at A. So this has to be a mutual partnership.
So I had the good fortune of seeing you 2 weeks ago at
I appreciate you coming, Dean. Thank you, man.
Yeah, well, it was actually I mean, I was very surprised in a very good way of how, first of all, well run it was, and on top of that, because I know we know, Rich and I knows what it takes to run an event. It is not easy.
It was stressful.
It was a lot there.
It was stressful.
It's like but the information that you proposed, I mean, I think it got everyone thinking on a deep level. I mean, I even saw like some people crying like at some tables, and I was like, damn, this is like deep. Can you talk a little bit about like, and when did you get involved with the executive summit, or what you're like talk about the days, the whole thing exercise that you went through, like when did that even come into your world or your life?
So it came into my world in about 2020. Very quickly, and I'm not going to go into details, make it a sob story, but ultimately, my wife and I were supposed to get married. COVID hit, didn't happen. We were going to plan another wedding, and then she sat me down and basically, and I didn't get a chance to go over this at the summit, Dean, but I was going to get into it. We had too much content and not enough time. But my wife basically sat me down and said, "Look, I can't marry you." And I was like, "What do you mean you can't marry me? I make a ton of money. We go on vacations. Like, what the hell do you mean?" Like, she came from the projects, and I was leveraging that, not knowing it. But basically what it came down to is I was, lack of better words, a piece of shit. All I cared about was my wealth. All I cared about was my income. I think of contribution, right? What was I contributing to? I was contributing solely to my bank account. I was contributing solely to my ego. And I was contributing solely to just my future of how I saw it. That was my whole contribution from probably 2012, when I was starting to make money, all the way to 2020, of 8 years of just do whatever it takes to get it done, right? And then it goes into relationships. And my wife is by far the most important person in my life, and my father and my mother and my friends. But during that time of like 2012 to 2020, the only relationships I had with anybody is if it could benefit me. And if it couldn't benefit me, because my mind was just so get ahead, make money, you don't need anybody in your life that can't help you, right? This all started coming out when she told me she didn't want to marry me. And I really had to look at like the person I was. And I always go into, with all the psychology books I always read, you always hear about a CCC, which I've turned into what I call my ARC, my ARC. And A stands for alignment. Alignment, you need to know who this person is, who you are, right? Are you generous? Are you caring? Are you loving, friendly, and motivated, and happy, and all of that, right? So when I started doing the ARC and outlining who I was, it got really scary, right? Because then I got into relationships, and all that was whoever benefited me. And then I got into contribution, and it was just income, bank account, and ego. And then once my wife decided not to marry me, I literally went up to my cabin. I think I drank 3 bottles of whiskey 3 days in a row, cried my eyes out, and I just had this epiphany, right? And I just wrote down my ARC again, and I said, well, what should this look like? Because this is how it is. She just exposed it, and I wasn't aware of it. That's the most beautiful thing. Ignorance is bliss. And the biggest thing you'll always hear me talk and teach about is awareness in all aspects. Because I think that the opposite of awareness is ignorance, right? And it became aware to me of who I was because I didn't know. I just didn't know exactly who I was, but this brought awareness to it. And it gave me an opportunity to say, well, who do you want to become? Who do you want to be? Right. And I rewrote it. I rewrote my arc, my relationships. I listed my top 5 people in my life of who I love and care about the most, and created a plan around it to make sure that they're in my world as long as possible, that I'm contributing into their life in some way, shape, or form, and that I have somebody and something when this is all said and done, and I'm on my deathbed or I'm old and where income levels are reached, and it's just time to chill out. It's nice to know you'll have somebody on the side of you, because at the path I was going, I was going to have a nice house, beautiful car, great vacations, and be lonely as shit. Or any relationships I would have had would have been fake. And then I got into contribution. I spent a lot of times in hospice in college, and the 2 things I learned being in hospice around people, that there was either people who had a ton of regret, which was about 80% of them, regret, 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 regret. And then there was people who were just so happy that if they died today, tomorrow, 3 days, like, they didn't give a shit. They were they were happy. And it was a big point in my life that I always said I wanted to be that person. But I lost track of that when I was making money. And I regained track of that when my wife said she didn't want to marry me. And the contribution of having a sense of meaning, like the people who were happy in hospice, they had a sense of meaning in their life. And if I would have continued down the path that I was, there was no sense of meaning. What did I contribute to? A house, a car? It was all superficial things. And that's why I got into the Execution Summit, having learned everything that I've gone through. I was able to start connecting the dots. What did I do well? Where did I make mistakes? What coaching did I take, and execute on well that helped me go to A to B? And there was a lot of stuff that I was doing without knowing I was doing the right things. And there was a lot of things that I didn't know that I was doing wrong that I thought were right. So once I finally put this all together, really, again, thankful to my wife for bringing awareness to it, life started to change, like, drastically. The income I was making started to become even better. And I started to feel fulfilled with everything and everything that I was doing. And I had a sense of meaning. Like, that was the biggest thing. A sense of meaning for how I'm articulating our life for the future of our children. How sense of meaning for how I'm articulating my partnerships with my agents and what their future would look like, and not just income, 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 income. And that's really why I put the Execution Summit on, was to bring all the experiences I've had, both positive and negative, into one place, and really talk about wellness first, and making sure our arc is where we want it to be. First, find awareness about what it is and what would you like it to look like. Then what are the steps you could do to change it? Because it's not just easy to say, oh, I'm this way and I want to be this way, and like, okay, now it happens, right? Like, there's got to be action steps you take. And those are the ones that I did. And that's all the experiences and lessons that I want to share with people. Because I believe that if you get healthy in your wellness world of your mindset, your emotions, your relationships, your alignment, your sense of meaning, like, now you could start showing up. I'm the biggest believer in all this, that if you're well, like, then you could just start showing up as the best version of yourself. And when you could show up as the best version of yourself, again, now you're creating those opportunities I talked about with basketball. Now you could dribble, now you could shoot, now you can play defense, you could run, you could last long, and you have opportunities. And you're going to create more wealth opportunities, more income opportunities if you're showing up as the best version of yourself, versus this half-hearted, unfulfilled, miserable, can't sleep person that has no sense of meaning for their life besides their bank account. Like, yeah, you're still going to do well. Like, you can, but you're going to have regret, like those other 80% of the people that you just don't need to have if you just start putting this stuff in your life sooner than later. So
there's so much to unpack there, Rich. But I mean, if I may, I'm just gonna ask a couple things. But like, one thing is relating to what you just said in terms of, I really believe this truly, that life happens for us, not to us. And I think if you can, like, flip the script on that, I mean, but a lot of agents listening to this are probably going to think to themselves, yeah, it's easy for you, Mike. I mean, you're talking about this now, but you had to go through this. I mean, your wife was clearly a blessing in your life, clearly. Yeah. But you know, a lot of agents are going to be questioning in their head, yeah, but it's Mike Hern. So, you know, he could, you know, say this, you know, mumbo jumbo stuff and get all deep about this now because he has the money. So for the agents that are struggling still, that are trying to get up on their feet, that are trying to push the needle forward and go that next direction, like, what would you suggest to agents today to like reach the next level? Maybe not finding, like, you know, with what you just said about the wellness, but I think that's super important. But what are you suggesting to those people now today?
That are struggling, that want to start getting from A to B.
Yes, they want to start making money in real estate, but they have no, like, but they put, let's say they're putting in the work or whatever they think is the work.
Well, so the first thing that I would say is identify the work that you're doing. And I would pretty easily probably pick that apart and show you that all you're working is on income things and not yourself.
Hmm.
And I guarantee you, when you start working on yourself, then start getting to those income things, you're going to start seeing those income things all of a sudden start working. Because again, you have this expectation of this, and we know that in order to get this, and this has to get done. But the reality is you're not capable of doing those things at a high level because you haven't worked on yourself first. Right? You want to pick up the phone and prospect. Do you know psychology? Right? Did you work on that? Do you know how to have conversations? Do you know how to ask the right questions? Like, you could do those activities all day you want, but you still have to become a better person. And I always, like, even on that regard, outside of the scripts of listing appointments or prospecting, I've won more deals from just the conversations I had when they were just finally able to speak to me, and I was able to speak in a sophisticated way about something or anything more to do with like myself, not selfishly, but of learning and getting better and things of that nature. They appreciated that, right? So the biggest thing that I would tell anybody starting, because that's who I work with the most, and that's where I was, right? I started. But this is where I told you I was doing things right and I didn't know it. We started this off with teaching and education. I was very educated. And believe me, I guarantee you I'm the dumbest person on this call. Because you don't have to be smart to be educated, right? Educated means you need to know your shit. And I didn't realize that I really knew my shit, which is why the activities I was doing were working. Does that make sense?
It does. And would you say that during this time you learn how to find gratitude within yourself? And would you say, you know, positive affirmations, you know, were you doing that? Were you out there, what do you call it?
Manifesting?
Yeah, well, manifesting. Well, what's the other one when you quiet your mind and you just
Yoga?
something like that.
Meditating.
Meditating, yeah, exactly. And meditation, all of that. Do you think, did you do any of that? Was that a start? Like,
So
I feel like so many people are lost where to start because they think about all this and they're like, I don't even know what to do first.
So manifestation was something I was doing without knowing I was doing it. I had this vision in my head that I was gonna have a nice house and make money and be able to go on vacation. Like, that's always been in my head. I think that was from listening to rap music my whole life. Like, I just thought I was gonna have money, cars, clothes. Like, I think that's that. But that manifestation, again, as I found later in life, that was something I was doing early on, right? Even dreaming of being an NBA player and X, Y, like, it just, that manifestation was always there.
Right.
And then as I got educated further on, if I want more, I got to become more, I learned that slowing myself down through meditation was real, because I just thought that was bullshit, corny, stupid. Like, who the hell wants to slow down? Go, meditate. Like, that's for wimps. Like, that was my mindset. So meditation, I meditate all the time. I'm in grounding, so I get my feet on the ground at least for 20 minutes a day. I get up with the sunset, so my cicada rhythm is where it needs to be. These are all my wellness practices now because I want to become more to achieve more. And they weren't big in my life previously because, as I said, I don't believe you need all of these things to reach your level. Like, it's not the wrong way to not have this. I just don't think it's the best way to not have this, especially when you're starting, because I do believe you're going to get where you want to go quicker and
Right.
happier. And when we talk about gratitude, that was when I was seeing a psychologist for myself because I was doing well and I just wasn't happy. I had, again, no sense, no meaning, unhappiness. And the first thing, like with anything, is gratitude. Well, what are you grateful for? Right. So I would always end my day. I know a lot of people like to do it in the morning, but I would always end my day with gratitude. So I was trying to improve my sleep, to improve my performance, right? To improve who I wake up and show up as, and not be angry at the coffee pot, but be happy to get a goddamn cup of coffee, get fired up to go into the office, get fired up to make the calls, get fired up to teach my team. Like how you show up is so important, which is why I say like that wellness aspect of what you said, Rich, of the meditation, the manifestation, all of those things matter. But I didn't learn them how I didn't learn how important they were till later on when I did well and I was very unhappy. I was miserable. My relationships were shit. Like I said, the incidents with my wife, those didn't become aware until almost it was too late. And I'm just lucky that it wasn't. I'm lucky that I'm relatively young, and that the rest of my life can now be better than what it was previously. Not that not that it wasn't good. It wouldn't have mattered if I was to die today. I would look back and be like I didn't do anything. I made money. Like, what is that? I'm not going to die happy. Like, that wouldn't be it. So for me, everything revolves around like, if you were to die tomorrow, like, how do you feel? How do you feel? Like, did you mean to anybody? Did you make an impact in anyone's life? Because nobody gives a shit what's in my bank account. Nobody cares.
Mhm.
Only
Okay,
you. Not even
yeah.
your wife cares. Like, she wants to be treated with respect. She wants to be happy. She wants to have conversations. That stuff matters. Um, but yeah, I didn't learn that till a little later, and I'm lucky I caught it because it's making my life ever since I did in around 2020. It's making my life so much better because I'm showing up as the best version of myself as consistently as humanly possible.
Yeah. And I think you were always on the right path. I feel like, being good people, like money amplify. I believe this because I feel like I've either experienced it or other people around this have experienced where you basically start making some good sums of money and all of a sudden it just amplifies who you are. So if you're a good dude, you're going to be a better it's going to be more of that going on and vice versa. So I think you were on that path for sure. But then you also, despite, knocking like who you were before, you obviously made some really good financially astute moves, in my opinion. And I really feel like, now that you've taken care of like the wellness side, you're obviously it's always a continuous process, but the going forward is at our Phone Warriors talk, you talked about this investing side. Can you go a little bit about that? About like, if an agent, let's say, does make a lot of money in a year, like what is like the first thing that you would recommend for them to do financially to either not pay taxes or to actually, limit their liability to the government?
Yeah. So look, the reality was I was making a high income. I don't come from a wealthy family, so there was no tax strategies. There was no, wealth planning. There was no plan on what to do with the money, right? It's great, Mikey. You're making a lot of money. You got to pay a lot of taxes. So I was like, oh, that's cool. If I'm paying a lot of taxes, I'm making a lot of money. That's awesome. And then when I got into to rooms as I was trying to grow, I sat around other wealthier people. And like one of the first questions was like, well, what'd you pay in taxes? Right. And they're like, what? They were making income 2 times, 3 times that amount and paying less in taxes. I'm like, this shit don't make sense. Like, you guys are going to go to jail. Right. Like something's wrong here. And the reality is that this is what you need to understand. The government asks you two things: partner with us or pay us. Those are your options.
Mm.
If you partner with us, we will incentivize you with deductions. If you don't want to partner with us, God bless you, just pay us what you owe us. It's that simple.
To live here.
And yeah, and what I did is I said, okay, how do I partner? And what did I do? I didn't just go start executing. I got educated. I had to become somebody capable of executing those things. And how did I do that? By being around the right people, getting into coaching and masterminding and sitting at tables with people who were doing these things. So it could become more of me, right? And what I learned is it's not what you make, it's what you keep. It's not what you keep, it's where you keep it. And that started to then transition to like, okay, well, how does a wealthy person spend money? And how does a not so wealthy person spend money? Or how do they think of money is the better way, right? A wealthy person is they're gonna make money, then they're gonna save what they need to save based on their income. Then they're gonna spend money, which is usually on expenses or investments. And then they're gonna pay taxes, right? So they'll save, spend, pay taxes. Where a not so wealthy person, which is 80% of the individuals or more, will make money, they'll pay their taxes, then they'll spend, and then they'll save. Like almost a complete reverse aspect. And they wonder why the rich get richer. There's no scheme in that. The rich just get way more educated on how to keep more of what they make. Because they work pretty damn hard to make it, and they know what money can do for themselves, for their family, for growing their business, for growing a legacy, for having generational change for their children. So having that opportunity that they've created for themselves now matters in educating themselves on how to save money through specifically tax incentives that the government has out there for you to execute on. And if you do, they will reward you handsomely for it.
That's it. So what do you suggest then? Like, let's say that you're investing in, are you talking, I'm assuming it's real estate, but I mean, I know there's two ways the government, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may not be educated in this as much, but I know real estate obviously is one way. I feel like also businesses, if you have a business, however you shelter that in terms of LLCs or whatever, that's another way. But what are you suggesting then to have someone to partner with the government in the right way? Like what, so give us an example, give us like a quick example of what that looks like.
Sure. So first and foremost, if you're a real estate agent, I guarantee you more than 50% of you on your tax filings, and go do yourself a favor, go back to your last year accounting and go look to see if you have real estate professional checked off. Because I guarantee you guys are all real estate professionals, and more than 50% of you don't have real estate professional checked off on your taxes. And that's not your fault. Well, it kind of is, because you're working with the wrong accountant. But the real reality is it's the accountant's fault, because you got to understand, an accountant, all they do is file returns. What did you make? What did you do? They file it to the government. They're not there to lay out plans and strategies and tactics for you to build wealth and save on taxes. That's not their job. Go look it up. It's not in their job description. You have to have a tax planner, a tax attorney, or a tax strategist to do this. But again, there's other stuff that you could get educated on that if you're not at that level yet, you could start executing on. Here's one, the Augusta rule, right? The Augusta rule allows you, if you own your own home, your primary residence, you could rent that up to 14 days out of the year, tax-free. So Luxury Living, my company, rents my primary home from me 14 days out of the year. On those 14 days, I actually have a business meeting with all my team. We do coaching, we do training, I buy the food, whatever it is, and then I rent my house to the company for $2,000 a day, right? So 14, that's $28,000 that Luxury Living pays Michael Hern. So an expense to my income, $28,000 less, and that money goes directly to me, tax-free, in my pocket. That's a big savings, right? I just did this with my friend who's a teacher, and he works on our farm. We had him create his Rose Consulting LLC for farming. We hosted, right now we've done 3 events where he brought local farmers by his house, cooked some burgers, this and that, which we then got crazy and expensed it through the farm. Like, you could go crazy with it. But he set up the meeting. He charged himself $1,000 a day. So he now had $3,000 gave to him from his company he created into his pocket. And granted, his company for consulting because what I pay him for farming is only 10 grand. But instead of paying $3,000 in taxes on the 10 grand, we're going to get him down to probably $3,000 in taxable income. And all that other $7,000 is directly in his pocket. Right. So you don't have to be a millionaire or 500,000 or 200,000. Like there's strategies you could implement. And truthfully, people say, oh, if you make a lot of money, it matters. No, if you make a lot of money, you save more money. But if you make less money, the money you save is way more important. Way more important. Way more important. So I always say anybody that 50 to 100K, you should start getting really savvy to see what you could be doing, because this is how you're going to start be able to build wealth and create an account. What I call like a wealth coordination account is money that goes into savings. So when a business opportunity approaches, I know that there's money in there to do that. Well, where does that money come from? Well, it comes from my savings of what I do with my taxing, my accounting, right? Then I could fund that account because that was all money that would have went to the government. Cost segregation. I was coaching two girls. They were both making 100K. One girl said, you know, I don't want to get involved in this. I just pay my taxes. Great. So you made 100K. You paid 30,000 to the government. God bless you. The other girl said, Mike, I want to get savvy about this. I said, okay, I'll help you. So we bought a $300,000 condo. She put 10% down, which is 30K, right? So person one sent 30K to the government. Person two decided to partner with the government. She put 30K into a condo for the 10% down payment. The government says you could take that $300,000 condo, take 30% of that, and deduct it from your income. So 300,000 times 30% is 90K. So her $100,000 income is now minus 90 is $10,000, right? Which means she would have paid 3K in taxes and owns a condo. But the home she bought, she was actually cash flowing $500 a month, which was 6K for the year. So this girl made $3,000, owns a condo, and paid no taxes. Where the other girl made 100K, paid 30K in taxes. Like that is a massive, massive difference in terms of wealth building, opportunity having, legacy changing, generational change, like stuff for your children. Like the higher you execute this stuff, like it gets really, really crazy quickly. And this is not illegal, right? Like this is all stuff that it's all legal. You just got to be educated, and you have to have the right strategist to lay out the plan that makes sense for you. Because maybe Augusta rule doesn't work for you because you don't own a home, right? Well, then you got to find another route. Maybe if you buy an investment property, then you could do the cost seg, right? But you got to be, there's pros and cons to that, because if you sell it, you're going to have to 1031 exchange that because you've already depreciated everything all up front. Because all cost segregation means is that instead of taking the depreciation over 27.5 years, you're doing it all in 1 year. All right. So you could have more of your money to go do stuff with, to create more wealth, more income, more opportunities, etc.
That's a huge hack, dude. I mean, people don't realize the 100% depreciation rule is ridiculous. But what are you saying then to, because this is, we're going to wrap up here in a little bit. And one thing I always like to ask is, actually, Rich, I'm going to go a different direction here with this. I'm going to say, instead of what you would say to yourself, or maybe if you could, you know, picture yourself being 21, 22, but like if an agent comes to you now, like putting aside the team, putting aside everything else, they're just an agent, let's say in Indiana, California, wherever, they say, Michael Hern, wow, I watched your episode. I need some advice. Like, what do you tell? Let's say they're a couple years in the business and they're in their 20s, or they're not, or they're just in general. What are you saying? What advice are you giving to agents today to for anything in what they want to do to be successful?
Specifically today, because the market is tough.
Yes.
I would tell them to do all the things that everybody else doesn't want to do. Right? If you could get really good at that, you're going to have an opportunity. It doesn't guarantee you success, but you will have a greater opportunity than anybody else to be successful. Now, I always think there's an opportunity when markets get tough. I got in 2009, 10, and that was when people were still getting out, right? So this goes into the fact that the activities that I was doing at that time were activities that other successful agents prior to me were like, you're doing that, like you're an idiot. You're writing note cards after you visit, after you do an open house to send out to them with a $5 Starbucks gift card. I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? There's nothing else to do. Like these were the activities of that time, right? And I did them at a high level. I did open houses from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. if it was vacant, right? I mean, even on my team, what pisses me off is I have agents that complain about X, complain about income, complain about opportunity. There's a vacant listing. Why didn't you do an open house all day? Right? Like you got to create opportunity. I don't see any of you sitting in Starbucks with a I do real estate sign, ask me questions. I did all of these things. And there's no, it's not a luck that I got to where I got to. I put in that work, right, on myself to start. And then second, by trying to create opportunities. Because we talked about luck, Dean, at the event. And, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. When you're prepared and you get that opportunity, that's when you start getting lucky, right? So guess what? I was knowledgeable on the market. I knew my stuff. I knew my data. I sat at Starbucks. And when somebody came up to me, I was already prepared. And eventually they created an opportunity. And then I got lucky. But it happens when preparation meets opportunity. So I would tell them, do all the things that everybody else isn't doing. You're going to hear a ton of complaining, and whatever they're complaining about is what you need to go get really damn good at. And I think prospecting is the most, I think, profitable way that you could really run a business and start with no money, no investment in marketing and things of that nature. I believe it's good. It's just hard because you have to work on yourself before you're capable of speaking to somebody at a high level about potentially selling their home, and you never got face-to-face time with them. So it's a difficult thing. So you have to be a phone warrior. Like you have to be a warrior, and you got to know what you're doing and how to do it.
That's awesome.
I love that, and you're absolutely correct on every aspect. I know that over the last, we'll call it 3 or 4 years, right? You definitely made a huge change in your life. But prior to that, and just you as an individual today, knowing your family and your children's children, potentially your friends, everybody around you, what would you want to be known for? Like you visited those I guess homes where the people had regret. On your tombstone, where would you want people to know you as? Like, what would you want that final engraved to be? Like, Michael was what?
He made time for me.
Hmm.
That's, again, I think that's something that you guys should all ask yourself right now. Like that question's been asked to me 4 or 5 years ago when I was going through this. Like, what's on your tombstone? And I want everybody that's there say he made time for me, because I am an extremely busy person with a million different things and opportunities to do. But when I die, all of those things aren't going to matter. What's going to matter is the time I spent with those people, right? So I wanted to say he made time for me. Like that's who that guy was. He was a busy ass man, did a lot of different things, but he always made time for me.
I love that.
That's awesome, dude.
Deep all by itself.
Yes, it does. And this has been an amazing episode, dude. Thank you so much for doing this.
Are you kidding me? I'm grateful to be with you guys. You guys are such high level, such good people. I don't know who's on this call, but if I had an opportunity to be with Dean and Rich every week, if you're somebody like myself and you actually take what they say and start to execute, like you will see a difference in your business, in your world, in your sphere, in your tactics, your activities. But I know it's hard for us to always execute on different things. But if you could take a lot of the stuff of what they teach you and actually start executing it, you're going to see a difference in everything that you do.
Awesome, dude.
I appreciate that, Michael.
Yes, sir. So I appreciate you guys more than you know. Thank you for everything.